All right, so let's talk about the pros of being an indie. So first of all, you get to do whatever you want. The world is your oyster, the sky is the limit, all that kind of stuff, right? So if you want to try to create the next big indie smash hit, you can do that. If you want to make a mobile game, something smaller, you can do that. If you want to self-publish your own thing on your own platform, you can do that. I mean, you could really just do whatever you want. And the great thing is that people still pay money for video games. So, I guess in contrast, the other industries like the music industry and the film industry are going through a really tough time because streaming has basically taken their industry from them, where they're having a hard time selling music and hard time selling movies. But games, people still regularly pay for games. And that's a huge advantage that you have as a creator, is that you can create something and you could put it out on all these different platforms and you could sell it. So that didn't exist when I started in the industry in the early 2000s. There was no game engines I could use and there were no open platforms. So in a way, I'm really jealous of the young game developer who is starting out that has all these great tools at their disposal and could put something out if they wanted to. So it's a lot of fun. I think though that it's also very scary because there's all this uncertainty. You don't know if what you're doing is going to sell, and the industry is changing all the time. That's the constant state of flux of the industry. And just when you think that you kind of understand it, it changes again, and you just never really know where it's going. You could try to sort of see and put some flags in the future of where you think it might go, but it'll surprise you and go in completely different directions. So another pro within being an indie is you get to drive your own destiny. You could literally create your own lifestyle design. And that's what I've really prided myself on. And that's why one of the reasons I left AAA is because there's a very structured environment when you're working at a large company. You're working from a certain time to a certain time, and you're doing that day in and day out. And what I wanted to do was have a more flexible work day, work week, where if I'm on a roll and I want to keep working, I could just keep working. And in other cases where I didn't want to work as much, I could do that too. If I want to go to the beach on a Tuesday, I could go and I could do that. Now that means that I'll probably be spending the night working on stuff, but at least I know that going in. That'd be very hard to do if you're working at a job. You can't just up and say, hey, I'm at the beach today. Sorry, I'll work on stuff later. That's usually frowned upon. So you definitely have a lot more freedom working as an entrepreneur as an indie developer. I think another thing to really consider is if you go indie, you really are creating a startup. And that's essentially what it is you are going into business for yourself as a startup, and your product is a game that you would sell on these various platforms. And the problem is that usually when you have a startup, you're trying to solve some sort of a problem. That's the first thing an investor will ask. Oh, you're doing a startup? What's the problem you're looking to solve? Well, when you're creating a startup in the entertainment space, like the video game industry, there's not really a problem that you're solving. There's more than enough games for people to play. So, what are you really doing? And really what the problem that you're solving is that nobody's playing your game, that your idea that you have is interesting and new and is worth creating and is worth sharing with people. It's something that would impact people. It's that connection that you would build with the people that play your games and hopefully touch them on some sort of cerebral level. Get them to maybe see the world a little bit differently because of something that you created. And I think that's the power of art, right? And you could explore that to its fullest extent when you are an indie studio. The cons obviously are that it's extremely unstable. The industry is always changing. You don't know what's going to be a hit. You don't know what's going to sell. You don't know if anything that you're working on is going to resonate. Now, there's ways to kind of mitigate that risk. And that's something that I plan on doing on this channel. But there's always a level of uncertainty. And you just have to be comfortable with that. I know a lot of people that wanted to get into indie game development and actually came from AAA. And after plunging in for a week or two, they just said, hey, I can't do this. I have kids, I have a mortgage. I can't just be noodling on, some concept art for a game that might not sell a single unit, right? So it's it takes a certain kind of risk taker to go in this direction. It also takes a certain kind of lifestyle, right? Like I know for myself, I usually save up and buy things with buy things outright with cash, because you can't bank on a steady paycheck to finance things. And so that creates a huge difference in, how you handle your life. So much of being an adult is financing things like your house, your car, and larger purchases. You do it through installments. Well, it's really hard to do that when you're a startup and you're running your own company and you don't really have a steady income. You wind up having to buy everything outright. And that's a big change for people. And that's something that you have to kind of know going in. Yeah, I think another con for indies are, you just kind of get lost. You're not sure what to work on next. There's nobody over your shoulder telling you like, you should do this and you should do that and so on. So it's easy to work in circles and get demotivated. And so I think this is an area that I hope to help on this channel, is getting into talking about the sort of workflow of how to make an independent game, and how to not get lost, how to create milestones for yourself, how to create weekly sprints. I'd like to get into all of that with you and see if maybe I could help you on that front. So obviously another con in indie development is sometimes it's just so daunting. There's so much to do. You might get lost, you might get stuck. This is a very common problem, and it usually stems from inexperience. If you don't have that AAA experience going into indie, it could really hurt you. Or maybe you just don't have a lot of project experience. You have to have worked on a lot of different projects, and you kind of get the feel of what works and what doesn't. You have to do your competitive analysis. You have to do your market research. That end of it is always overlooked. And it's a skill that really helps. A lot of players think that game studios don't take enough risk, but we are by default taking a huge amount of risk making any kind of game. As surefire hit as the game may seem, the very act of making a game is a huge, colossal risk. There is the chance that it will not sell any copies, and nothing is guaranteed. So, because of that, you really have to understand how the market works so that you can best position yourself for a chance of success. And so that's a skill that, needs to be learned, that kind of sits on top of all of the skills of game design and art and programming. So, yeah, it's one of the funny things that I get into is whenever I see an old friend who is still working in AAA, they're focusing on the deadlines they have to hit and some of the issues that they're dealing with at that level, and then they ask me how I'm doing, and I'm talking about whole genres and how to find a way to create a hit within a genre, and how to navigate these platforms and all this like business stuff, and they're just like, oh, that's crazy. I didn't know it was going to be so much business. But yeah, it's kind of like having your own business degree when you go into indie game development. You learn a lot of hard lessons. All right, well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.